This boat sucks, because it made me ask questions that I hate the answers to, and if you're watching this, there's a solid chance that you won't like them either. This boat is no ordinary boat, mostly because it's a secret rare Yu-Gi-Oh card, but also because this is the Ship of Theseus. Gaming has a Ship of Theseus problem, so first off, what is the Ship of Theseus other than this Yu-Gi-Oh card, and why is it a problem? The Ship of Theseus is a Greek myth/thought experiment, and to massively boil it down, you've got the legend of Theseus and the Athenians that want to celebrate the legend by taking a trip on their favorite mythos ship, dubbed the Ship of Theseus. Over the years, the ship naturally takes damage and needs to have its parts repaired or replaced in order for it to be maintained. The mast, the rudder, the netting, and eventually there comes a point where the very last remaining piece of the original ship needs to be replaced. It's then that someone asks the key question. And that question can be used to identify both a core issue with modern gaming and how gaming has changed. Once the entire ship had been rebuilt, the question was asked. Now that we've replaced every part of the original ship, is it still the same ship? It's an experiment that makes you dive into the ideas of persistent personal identity, intrinsic sentimental value, and other philosophical jargon that makes you question whether or not something is the same, even after you've changed the source material. And that's great and all, but what does this mythological philosophote have to do with my video games? Well, that depends on your answer to the question. For the sake of this video, my answer, and the opinion I'll try to defend, is this. After having all of the pieces replaced, it is no longer the same ship. Because even if the ship serves mostly the same people, the same purpose, and looks almost exactly like the old ship, you were invested in the original ship that you started with. The identity of the ship, name tag aside, is different now. It has a new soul. Philosophy lesson over, video games. The whole reason I bring up any of this is because I want to ask the exact same question about video games and recontextualize it a bit. That being, how much of a game can you change before it's not the same game anymore? Or at least, not the same to you. I was really pushed to ask that question over time with one game in particular, possibly the most important game that I've ever played, and that game was Destiny. Destiny was by far the single game that I'd sunk the most amount of time into, and when Destiny 2 came out, I kept playing. Time went on, friends came and went, but there was always more Destiny to play. Curse of Osiris, Warmind, Forsaken, and oh man, Forsaken was so good. But over time, I have to admit that I started getting burnt out after playing the same MMO FPS for what, 6+ years? I did come back for Shadowkeep after the insanely hype news that Bungie had finally been disconnecting from the toxic relationship that is Activision Blizzard. You know, the publisher that's been speedrunning EA's any percent for the most hated company ever world record. Actually, they might have that title by the time you see this video, I don't know what's changed, but then, I'd had my fill. I was good, and it was time to move on and play other games, and so I did, but a couple years later, a close friend of mine came to visit me after we'd all graduated from college, and he told me about Witch Queen. Contrasting me, he had just started playing Destiny 2 the year that I stopped, and when he pulled it up, he started blowing my mind with all of the new content Witch Queen had to offer. Characters that should have been dead were back to life, old major villains have united with us against a common enemy. There was a ton to unpack here, so I promised him that I would buy it. And after I'd played the first mission, I gotta say, I hated it. I came back to Destiny 2 after 2 years of sobriety, and let me tell you, as a former hardcore player who basically lived in Destiny 1 and grinded Destiny 2 for 3 years straight, Year 5 onwards of Destiny 2 has made me feel more alienated than any other game ever has. I'd have to make an entire video breaking down all of the reasons why I didn't really like Destiny 2 anymore, which feels incredibly tragic for me, and I probably won't do for the sake of my own sanity and sorrows, but putting all the individual reasons aside, what it would all boil down to is very simple. For me, Destiny 2 wasn't Destiny 2 anymore. Year 5 Destiny 2 is at least as different from Year 1 as Destiny 2 was from Destiny 1, and for those of you that played those games when they were released and there for the sequel, you know how loaded that statement is. Now, let me be clear. I am not saying that every single change made in Beyond Light, Witch Queen, or Onward was ever bad, far from it. And at the very least, it was the deepest version of the Destiny MMO formula that we'd ever seen. What I am saying is that as a player who wasn't there for every little change as it happened, the amount of change is so incredibly jarring that I don't even want to try to learn it anymore. It's like the gaming equivalent of the not-so-entirely scientific parable of the frog and the boiling water. Since I didn't stay in the water as it gradually changed in temperature, I just jumped back in to find the water boiling all of a sudden and jumped out feeling burned. How much of Destiny 2 can you change before it's no longer Destiny 2 anymore? For me, it was about 2 years of total creative freedom's worth. Now, granted, Destiny is an MMO, in fact it's the only proper MMO I've ever played, but I still can't help but think back to a JonTron video from way back when he talked about the World of Warcraft players that had stood up and maintained a legacy server for older versions of the game. Blizzard, oh hey, it's them again, were forcing the servers to shut down while threatening legal action against the owners of the legacy servers, and in response, thousands of players gathered in the main city streets to parade and march in the memory of the game that they had loved that was about to be taken away by a developer who wished they would just play the newest expansion instead. This Ship of Theseus problem is naturally endemic to MMOs, and almost always has been. Destiny 2 was just the first time that I was personally exposed to it, which got me thinking, how many other games that I'm aware of are like that? Minecraft oddly comes to mind. Once the Caves and Cliffs update came out, or 1.17 onwards, the entire progression system of the game changed, and likewise, so did the way you have to play the game. Functions that used to be fulfilled exclusively by redstone now only worked with copper. The fortune enchantment became the best enchantment in the game by a psychotic margin because now it affects every mineable commodity other than just redstone, lapis, coal, and diamond. Diamond isn't the best material in the game anymore, and much, much worse, optimized strip mining is useless now because they've changed all the spawn locations of precious resources and made it possible for there to somehow be negative elevation despite zero logically being the bottom of the world, so they should have just increased the ceiling instead. Why? I booted up a new world after the 1.17 update, something I also don't have anymore thanks to the updates, and got an amazing spawn near 2 villages, a gigantic underground cavern, a flower field, and not far from a pillager outpost, and despite having everything going for me, I was bored. Because the core gameplay loop had changed and the mechanics of the materials that were fundamental to the game were now different, I felt as though I really couldn't play anymore. Mining now felt like a tedious chore instead of a satisfying grind, and while I'm sure there's some sort of meta strat on some Reddit forum somewhere detailing the new optimal routing to get stuff, I don't want to have to learn the meta to play a game that I've been playing for a long time and still have fun with it. I've spent 10 years learning how to play this game, and now that just doesn't matter. I can't help but acknowledge the fact that if I had just now been introduced to Minecraft, it'd be just as amazing as when my friend booted up the original beta in 2010 on an old laptop for the first time. But the fact that I had time to grow attached and get good at how the game was means that I really can't enjoy the game how it now is. I think, anecdotally, my personal answer to the Ship of Theseus gaming question is, a game stops being the game that it used to be once you change the core gameplay loop. With Destiny, there were now several new critically important items that determine how your character plays, and seeing how I had been absent, I wasn't there to grind for all of those things. Now, my once max level character with god-rolled loot feels weak and obsolete, and worse yet, I have so much to catch up on and learn that to even make anything close to good again just doesn't feel worth it. The process of building your character, changing how they look and how they played, was just as core to the gameplay as the actual looting and shooting, and that half of the soul of the game was removed and changed. With Minecraft, the core loop of the literal mining and crafting had changed. They didn't just change mobs, add biomes, and patch bugs. Mojang changed the entire item economy of the game and how and where those items could be obtained. Getting wood, then stone, then coal, then iron, and so on had been the core gameplay loop of a new Minecraft world for years. Now then, have you been playing our game for a decade and finally gotten to near speedrunner levels of skill in that gameplay loop? Real shame about that, here's Minecraft 2, except we're calling it an update instead. When you change the mechanics and the progression necessary to make the gameplay of a game work, you change the core gameplay loop. When you change the core gameplay loop, you change the game. And you know the insane thing? This is only the front half of the Ship of Theseus problem. What we just talked about is enabled by the back half of the problem, the fact that games nowadays are iterative. The ability to patch games on the fly after release has changed the entire landscape of the medium. But that's a topic for another video. For now, looking to the horizon off the front of our freshly rebuilt ship, I have to ask a different question. You think the new ship can tank that iceberg? Thank you guys so much for watching. Were there any games that changed to the point where you didn't really enjoy them like you used to? Let's talk about that. And in the meantime, I've been Lone Wolf EX. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you, yes, you, next time.